we stopped by the Deep Silver booth here at PAX East to learn a little bit more about a game that's coming. And when you first hear it, you're going to think top-down action RPG, but that's not at all what Sacred Citadel is about.
Exactly. Sacred Citadel is all about bringing a kind of fresh look to the Sacred franchise. We're taking some really classic beat-em-up action that a lot of us grew up with, we really know and love, and then we're bringing that up to date with a lot of sort of fighting game-inspired depth, lots of cool co-op mechanics, and sort of RPG elements as well. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So you mentioned co-op. It's 3-player co-op, right? What's the idea behind that?
Also, we've got 4 classes in the game, and it's kind of about saying, you can't necessarily have it all. You got to like shake it up a little bit. And it's also we want to make sure that everybody's got enough screen real estate that it doesn't get too chaotic. So we kind of found the sweet spot at 3 players, but that is online and local co-op. And you're definitely going to be able to find sort of a role for each one of your classes. They really do play pretty differently, and so the hope is that even though it's a 3-player group, that you can definitely get a huge amount of variety in the co-op experience.
So obviously the Sacred franchise, known for its RPG roots, what sort of things are you bringing in from that into this beat 'em up game?
So we've got one of our favorite things in the game with that regard to the RPG elements is randomized loot that you can find. That's weapons and armor. We've also got potions and consumables that'll drop. But being able to find a sweet fire sword or something like that gives you that sense of getting the kind of legendary loot, and that's a little bit of a hack and slash thing there. We've also got a lot of cool power moves in the game. They're a lot like the big abilities that people know from the Sacred franchise as well. Then you'll be leveling up your character over time, so you'll have your skill points to distribute and stuff like that. We hope that that's going to be enough to kind of transport some of that RPG energy to this genre.
So obviously story is a big part of RPG as well. How are you treating that? Because you don't really have the sort of the same. It's not the same sort of. The player isn't as sort of invested in a story perhaps in a beat 'em up. So you have to be quicker about telling the story and more to the point. Where does the story fit in, and how do you sort of bridge the gap there?
So the Sacred Universe is filled with a lot of ancient mystery and legends and a lot of really epic fantasy conflict, and that stuff is still going on. But the cool thing about Citadel is that we're kind of looking at all of this through the eyes of a couple of really kind of treasure hunters who kind of get caught up in this crazy epic conflict. So they almost have a little bit more of an outsider perspective on things and a little bit more humor about the whole situation. And I think that's reflected both in the game's kind of comic-inspired humor. Got a lot of nice like sort of over-the-top action, some really like silly little kind of moments, but it's also about just the even the art style, the way that we've got this really bright, colorful world. That's something that's kind of maybe from the perspective of people who are a little bit more down to earth and just kind of making their way through this adventure, rather than the guys who would have a more sort of gritty, big picture, strategic look at what's going on.
Can you say something about the developer South End? Because we haven't really seen much from them since Isle of Milo, which was a beautiful, brilliant game. So what can you tell us about?
Well, we're really proud to be working with South End. They're a fantastic partner. They have a spectacular art team that really helped to guide both the style as well as the really responsive animations and timings that are needed to do a really solid beat-em-up game. Yeah, they've won awards. They're well known for their artwork, so they really were able to kick it up a notch there too. But just the sense of humor that they've got and the energy that they're bringing in, they just have a ton of talent. So I think one of the things they managed to do really well is bring this kind of fighting game stuff in there too. Things like juggles and screen pinning and all that kind of stuff. It's stuff that you kind of have to do with a little tongue-in-cheek humor, and I think they've just been great about that the whole way through. So we're really excited for players to get their hands on it and see what South End has done.
So when it was first announced, it was sort of announced as like a tie-in to Sacred 3. How's that going to work out? Is it still connected in that way?
Yeah, so this is definitely it's related to Sacred 3, absolutely, and it's related to the whole Sacred legacy. I mean, the history is interconnected in the games. There will be some nice little references that returning players will be able to see from the franchise's roots, but we're also taking a really new take on this whole franchise, this whole license, and we're hoping that it's something that's going to be accessible, going to be a nice way for new players to come in who haven't seen it before, as well as, of course, for returning players to kind of get a new glimpse at a world that maybe they thought they knew everything about so far.
So I suppose the game is almost done, or perhaps even done. It's coming out very soon. Can you tell us a little bit about platforms and release dates and such details?
Absolutely. It's coming out in April for PSN, XBLA, and Steam. And players will be able to find it all over the place real soon.